Chosen one, this is not your imagination. What keeps showing up is not coincidence. God is speaking to you again and again, and this moment is not random. It's divine confirmation. You've been seeing repeated patterns, doors that close at the last minute, dreams that feel more like instructions than stories, numbers, names, places. You've been asking, God, is this you? Yes, it is. He's showing you what others can't see. This isn't about superstition. This is about divine alignment. God isn't just guiding you. He's marking your steps. And what might seem subtle to someone else is crystal clear to your spirit. That's why you can't shake it. That's why you're here. You keep circling the same themes in your heart. Certain things feel louder, more urgent. That's not pressure, it's prompting. You've outgrown where you were, and now God is sending signals to prepare you for where you're going. This is why the same type of message keeps finding you. Because you're not missing the signs. You're being trained to recognize them. This isn't paranoia, this is prophetic awareness. The repetition is not punishment, it's revelation. When God wants your attention, He doesn't whisper once and walk away. He speaks again and again. Because He loves you too much to let you miss what He's ordained. You are His chosen one. And with that identity comes a sensitivity others might not understand. That's okay. What He's confirming in your spirit will soon manifest in your life. So what are the signs? The things you used to ignore now pierce your spirit. You feel a holy restlessness in familiar places. You're drawn to messages like this, not out of curiosity, but because your spirit knows this is for you. And let's be clear, this isn't about chasing signs. It's about learning how God communicates uniquely with you. You don't need every detail. You just need to obey the next sign He shows you. From now on, stop second-guessing the confirmations. Stop calling divine nudges maybe when your spirit is already screaming, yes, you are being led. This is alignment, not accident. This is preparation, not paranoia. And this is God, not chance. If this word is confirming what you've already sensed, then pause here. Like this video, subscribe so we continue this journey together. Hand in the comments, declare your agreement by writing the number 55, the symbol of divine alignment, covenant, and new beginning. Because that's exactly what this is. Your new beginning has already begun. You've wondered why it's taking so long, why the answers haven't arrived in the way you expected. But God is not delaying, He's confirming. The signs keep coming not because you're missing something, but because He's establishing something deeper in you. Patience is not punishment, it is preparation. Every delay you faced was not a denial, it was a sign, a signal that God was holding back what you thought you wanted to give you something that aligns fully with who you're becoming. You've grown too much to settle for what once fit. That's why doors that used to open now remain shut. You didn't fail. You outgrew them. There is a deeper truth unfolding. The longer it takes, the greater the precision. You are not being overlooked. You are being hand-placed. The reason certain friendships faded, opportunities disappeared, or plans collapsed, it's not because you're off course. It's because God is removing every distraction that could distort your discernment. You are not meant to carry confusion into your next season. That's why clarity is coming through signs, not speeches. God is showing you what alignment really looks like, not by explaining it, but by letting you experience the peace that follows obedience. There's a new kind of quiet around you lately, not the silence of absence, but the stillness of God's presence. You've been tempted to fill it with activity, but He's asking you to observe, watch, listen, because the signs aren't just in what's said, they're in what's shifting. People have changed toward you. Energy around certain places feels different. Things that once excited you now feel distant. That's a sign you're not falling off. You're being pulled in. When God draws close, He often pulls you away from anything that could compete for your focus. That withdrawal isn't isolation, it's insulation. He's covering you, protecting what He's planting. And the signs are simply proof that the seed is real. Let this truth settle into your soul. You're not being ignored. You're being aligned. Every sign that has shown up in your path was meant to remind you that you are not walking alone. You've been chosen, and chosen ones don't walk by sight. They walk by alignment. You don't chase validation. You follow direction. And right now, God is directing you through confirmation, through patterns, through divine reminders that won't stop repeating until your spirit says, I see it. So open your eyes, chosen one. The signs aren't waiting to appear. They've been there the whole time, waiting for you to trust them. And now, the signs begin to multiply. What once came as subtle nudges now enters your world with undeniable clarity. A message repeated by strangers, a phrase that echoes in prayer and conversation, a door that closes just before you step through. This is not resistance. This is redirection. Because when God is guiding you, He doesn't just speak once. He confirms His will through convergence. That's how you know you're in alignment, when everything that once pulled you apart begins pointing in the same direction. Your heart, your peace, your prayer life. They're all saying the same thing. Move forward, but move carefully, because the place you're stepping into now doesn't allow for divided loyalty. You can't bring the weight of indecision into what God has made ready. He's not just showing you signs to inform you, He's showing you signs to separate you. This is where the shift happens. This is where God moves you from trying to discern into walking with assurance. You've prayed for answers. You've fasted for clarity. And now God is showing you that He's already responded. Through the signs you couldn't ignore, the patterns you couldn't escape, and the moments that wouldn't leave your spirit alone. You didn't miss it. You didn't get it wrong. And even if you didn't understand it at first, the clarity is catching up to you now. That restlessness wasn't confusion. It was the Spirit alerting you to get ready, to stay watchful, to stop downplaying what you knew deep down was real. You've spent too long asking for more confirmation when God has already confirmed what He needed to. What you're feeling now isn't doubt, it's the weight of what's coming. Because this next move isn't about being clever, it's about being obedient. It's not about timing, it's about trust. And trust starts with movement, so stop looking for a louder sign. You're already surrounded by them. Every hesitation that didn't sit right, every opportunity that vanished without reason, every door that looked promising but wouldn't open no matter how hard you tried. God was protecting you from the counterfeit. You wanted access, but He wanted alignment. You prayed for breakthrough, but He gave you a way through. And now, you stand at the threshold, not of a possibility, but of a promise. Chosen one, your spirit already knows what comes next. It's not time to collect more evidence. It's time to move with what you know. Let the signs speak. Let the confirmation rest. Because what's ahead of you will require faith, not repeated proof. This is your confirmation. Let that be enough. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when the signs are no longer suggestions. They are summons. You're not just being guided, you're being called. And the signs are no longer subtle, they're sacred. You've started noticing a shift in what stirs your spirit. You can no longer entertain what drains you. You can no longer tolerate what grieves the Holy Spirit within you. That discomfort is not emotional, it's divine. God is showing you that certain environments can no longer hold the version of you He is raising. He's calling you to respond, not react, to step, not stall. The signs you're seeing are not just answers. They are instructions. And if you keep asking for reassurance when God is offering direction, you risk turning clarity into confusion. He is not showing you again and again because you're hard of hearing. He's showing you because the next step is weighty, not heavy with burden, but heavy with purpose. This is why you feel the urgency, the tightening of your circle, the deepening of your discernment, the hunger for more of His presence even when everything around you seems unchanged. That's how God moves. He prepares the internal before He reveals the external. You're being shown the same signs because God is fortifying your inner witness. So when the moment comes, and you're asked to step into what you've been sensing, your answer won't be based on impulse. It will be rooted in conviction. He's been preparing your yes long before the opportunity shows up. That's why the signs don't leave. That's why you keep waking up with the same weight on your spirit. Because what's next is not optional. It's appointed. Do not mistake repetition for delay. When God repeats Himself, it's not because He's unsure, it's because He's sealing the message. He's building your trust, training your vision, teaching you how to walk by spiritual instinct, not external validation. You're being entrusted with deeper things now. Insight that others may not understand. vision that might get misinterpreted. But that's why you're seeing what they don't. You weren't chosen to blend in. You were chosen to move when others stand still. And even when the signs challenge your comfort, remember this: God is not confirming your fear. He's confirming your faith. He's showing you that the safest place to be is not where everything makes sense. It's where everything aligns with what He has already spoken to your spirit. So walk in it, not because it looks easy, but because your peace agrees with it. Let the signs settle what your mind still tries to analyze. This is not a season for second-guessing. It's a season for responding. There's a reason your spirit has been more sensitive lately. The places you used to walk into without hesitation now feel foreign. The conversations that once filled your time now feel empty. Even your prayers have shifted. They're no longer filled with long explanations. They've become short, deep, and pointed. Because your spirit is no longer searching, it's responding. God is not just showing you signs to prepare you. He's showing you signs to separate you. Not for isolation, but for consecration. You're not being excluded, you're being set apart. And the evidence of that is in the signs that won't leave you alone. You've outgrown what was once comfortable, and the unease you feel isn't anxiety. It's invitation. You're being invited into a deeper awareness of His presence. That's why the old ways of moving no longer work. You can't force what God is no longer favoring. This is the stage where silence becomes strategy. You're being trained to see beyond surface, to discern motive behind movement, to recognize what looks like opportunity but isn't covenant. And that kind of discernment only grows when you start trusting what the signs are telling you, even when they interrupt your plans. There's a reason the connections you tried to revive fell flat, a reason the doors you knocked on stayed closed. You weren't being denied, you were being spared. And the signs were God's way of pulling you back before you settled for something beneath your destiny. Stop asking why things didn't work out. Start asking what God was trying to prevent. The chosen one doesn't just move when things look right. They move when things feel aligned. Your anointing requires more than surface-level confirmation. It demands spiritual agreement. That's why you're being shown again and again. Because God is revealing how closely your provision is tied to your perception. If you can't recognize the signs, you might miss the moment. Not because it wasn't there, but because you weren't looking through the right lens. You don't need to chase after signs. But when they come, don't dismiss them. Don't rationalize away what your spirit already knows. When God speaks in repetition, it's because the moment is approaching and your readiness matters. And if you keep waiting for others to validate what God is confirming privately, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of confusion. Your clarity doesn't require consensus. What you've been shown is for you. And when the moment arrives, you won't need to explain your decision. The fruit will speak for itself. So if your world has been quieter, trust that God is being louder, not in noise, but in direction, not in crowds, but in confirmation, not in popularity, but in presence. He's showing you again and again because you're closer than you think. You've reached a point where what used to satisfy no longer fills you. That's not disappointment, that's discernment growing. God is maturing your vision. What once looked like a blessing now looks like a distraction. What used to excite you now feels irrelevant. You've been asking yourself, what's wrong with me? But the truth is, there's nothing wrong. You're just seeing more clearly now. The signs are not always loud. Sometimes they come in the form of discomfort, a shift in energy, a hesitation that rises out of nowhere, a door that looks good on paper but carries no peace in your spirit. These are the indicators of divine preservation. You're not being blocked, you're being guarded. You can't afford to ignore that anymore. You've spent seasons giving chances to what your spirit had already declined. You've made excuses for connections that drained you. You tried to explain away the red flags. But God is showing you again and again that your protection is in your perception. When your spirit speaks, you must listen. Every time you obey a sign, even when it costs you something in the natural, you gain something in the spirit. Clarity, power, authority. Because every act of obedience becomes a seed that produces wisdom for your next step. And make no mistake, you will need that wisdom for what's coming. God is not repeating Himself because you didn't get it. He's repeating Himself because what He's preparing you for will require you to remember it under pressure. You'll need to recall his signs when circumstances try to confuse you. You'll need to stand firm on what you saw when emotions try to push you back into what you escaped. This isn't just about being led. It's about being rooted. You've been through too much to doubt yourself now. The signs didn't just show up around you. They've been shaping something inside you. Confidence, conviction, and most of all, courage. Because the next season doesn't require more ideas. It requires more obedience. You've already been given the insight. You've already received the prompting. Now it's about walking in it, boldly, without needing another opinion. God is speaking through alignment. When your mind, your spirit, and your peace agree, that's your confirmation. When the door opens and the fear you once carried disappears, that's your green light. And when what you see matches what he already spoke, you don't need to second guess it. Move. Because when God keeps showing you the same thing, it's not to convince you, it's to anchor you. You were never meant to live by reaction. You were called to move by revelation. You can sense it even when no one else can. The atmosphere around you is charged. Things are shifting without explanation. People are showing their true intentions. Opportunities are forming in silence. And through it all, God keeps confirming his hand on your life. He's not trying to get your attention anymore. He already has it. Now he's training your sensitivity. You don't need to be loud to walk in authority, and you don't need everyone's agreement to act on obedience. God is showing you how to discern without drama, to recognize without reacting, to move without needing applause. This is the season where your maturity will carry what your mouth doesn't need to explain. You've been tested long enough to know the difference between impulse and instruction, between what looks good and what is God. That clarity didn't come from comfort. It came from battles you fought in silence, from decisions you made when no one was watching, from the days you obeyed even when it cost you everything familiar. And now the signs are not just confirmations, they're invitations. God is calling you to walk in what he already showed you, to move forward, not because you have all the details, but because you trust his pattern. He's not just showing you what's coming, he's showing you what's no longer needed. The expired relationships, the outdated thinking, the emotional weights that once shaped your choices. All of it is being exposed so that nothing hidden can hinder you. You've stepped into a space where your assignment requires separation. And separation isn't always visible. Sometimes it happens in the heart, in the quiet disconnection from what used to feel necessary. God is detaching you from everything that no longer agrees with your anointing. That's why you felt the inner pull. That's why some doors aren't reopening, no matter how hard you knock. That's why the signs are becoming louder, closer, undeniable. You've entered a moment of divine accountability. You've seen enough to know. You've heard enough to decide. And now heaven is watching how you respond. What you do with this level of confirmation determines what you're entrusted with next. If you honor the signs, you won't have to chase the next step. It will appear. Because God always accelerates those who obey without delay. The instructions may not come with full explanations, but they will come with peace, and peace is the language of God's presence. If you sense peace in the middle of what others call risky, that's your sign. You're not waiting on clarity. Clarity is waiting on your obedience. You've been prepared for this without even realizing it. Every delay, every closed door, every season of silence was a layer of training. While you were wondering if God had forgotten you, he was fortifying you. He was teaching you how to read in the spirit what others miss in the natural. That's why you notice patterns. That's why you feel disruption before it's visible. That's why you can no longer ignore what others casually entertain. This isn't spiritual paranoia. This is prophetic awareness, and God gave it to you for a reason. You're not meant to follow noise. You're designed to follow the nudge, the gentle pull that says this is the way, the quiet warning that says not here, not them, not now, and the sudden peace that falls on your spirit like confirmation when everything else still looks unsure. You are walking with heaven's rhythm now. It's not loud, but it's consistent. God doesn't need to shout when your spirit is tuned in. That's why the signs keep showing up in whispers, because you've learned how to listen without needing volume. Some signs come through people, not their words, but their posture. Pay attention to what is revealed in their silence, their inconsistency, their timing. Every interaction is either a mirror or a message. God uses both. Other signs will come through interruption, things that fall apart without warning, plans that break unexpectedly. These are not punishments. These are divine blocks to prevent detours that would cost too much. And the most powerful signs often come in repetition. The same phrase in your heart, the same verse in your path, the same thought that won't leave you alone. That's not obsession, that's direction. You asked for clarity. This is how it arrives. It doesn't always make sense to the natural mind, but your spirit knows. That's the mark of being chosen. You don't walk by external approval, you walk by internal knowing. And God is honoring that knowing now by sending you what you've been preparing for. Not just opportunities, but evidence. Evidence that you heard him right. Evidence that your waiting wasn't wasted. Evidence that obedience always produces. You've crossed into the phase where the signs are not just for guidance. They're for confirmation of what's already in motion. You're not on standby. You're in flow. The signs are telling you what your spirit already discerned. It's happening. God is not preparing to move. He's already moving. Now you must keep pace. Every confirmation you've received lately has carried more weight. It's not because the signs have changed. It's because you have. Your sensitivity has deepened. Your distractions have been stripped away. Your discernment has sharpened through experience, not just revelation. And now the smallest whisper feels louder than a shout. God is no longer speaking to convince you. He's speaking to commission you. You've graduated from asking, "Is this real?" to declaring, "This is what I was made for." That shift in posture is a sign in itself. You're no longer operating from hesitation. You're moving from conviction. And that's what separates the chosen from the crowd. Not perfection, but responsiveness. There are moments when the signs are not meant to direct you somewhere new. They're meant to anchor you where you are. To remind you that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean you're off course. God uses signs not just to open doors, but to strengthen your stance when the door doesn't look the way you imagined. This is the maturity he's cultivating in you. The ability to stay where he planted you, even when the results don't arrive on your timeline. He's showing you that obedience is success. And when you honor the sign, even without seeing the outcome, you grow into the kind of person he can trust with the next instruction. Sometimes the most powerful sign is endurance. The ability to hold your peace when everything says fight. The grace to remain when walking away would be easier. The clarity to know that delay doesn't mean denial, it means preparation. You're not losing time. You're being aligned with perfect timing. And that's what this season has really been about. Alignment. Not just for what you do, but for who you are when you do it. You weren't just waiting for an opportunity. Heaven was waiting for your alignment, your heart, your thoughts, your character, your courage. All of it being shaped by the repetition of signs that brought you to this moment. You've been shown enough to walk forward now. You don't need another sign to begin. What you need is trust. Trust that everything you've seen has been divine. Trust that everything you felt was preparation. Trust that God never speaks in vain. Every signal has been part of the strategy. This is the threshold of fulfillment. You're not watching a pattern. You're standing in prophecy. And the time to act on it is now. You're walking into a season where God's signs will be followed by swift shifts. What took years to build will take days to change. What felt immovable will suddenly move. And what you couldn't access before will now come looking for you. That's the fruit of obedience. When you honor what God reveals, he accelerates what he's prepared. But acceleration without discernment leads to destruction. That's why he trained you through the signs, to recognize movement without mistaking it for progress, to test every open door before walking through it. Not everything that glows is gold. Not every opportunity is divine, and not every good thing is your thing. Your ability to move with clarity in this season is not about how fast you go, but how aligned you remain. Speed means nothing without direction, and your direction is determined by the signs you've already received. You don't need a fresh word, you need a faithful walk. God is calling you to move with wisdom, not hype. He's teaching you how to navigate increase without losing your integrity. Because favor can bring exposure, and exposure reveals what's real. That's why he spent so much time showing you the same signs. He wasn't repeating himself out of frustration. He was solidifying your foundation. There's a reason he didn't release certain things when you first asked. You weren't just waiting on the blessing was waiting on your capacity. And now that you've proven you can recognize the voice of God through silence, through conflict, through repetition, you are being entrusted with more, not because you're qualified, but because you're aligned. Your obedience has created room for God to move in ways that don't make sense to others. But that's exactly the point. This next season is not about being understood. It's about being in position. And when you're in position, you don't chase provision. It finds you. You don't force relationships. They align naturally. You don't manipulate outcomes. You walk in outcomes that were already written. The signs were not just to warn you. They were to prepare you for supernatural precision. That's what you carry now. A precision in your steps, a purity in your motives, a peace in your process. Don't question the flow. Don't downplay your readiness. You've seen enough. You've discerned enough. And now you're stepping into what your spirit already rehearsed. This is not new, it's next. And next has already begun. You're not stepping into this unaware, you're stepping into it awake. The signs were not just preparation, they were your awakening. God didn't just reveal patterns so you could analyze them. He revealed them so you could break free from cycles that kept you bound. Cycles of delay, cycles of doubt, cycles of self-sabotage that always activated right before the breakthrough. Not this time. This time you've seen the pattern early enough to stop the cycle. You're no longer falling for what looks familiar, but leads to frustration. You're no longer confusing delay with denial or conflict with misdirection. You've been refined through repetition, and now you know what is God and what's not. This clarity you carry didn't come from comfort, it came from confrontation. God had to confront the way you used to think, the way you used to chase, the way you used to settle, and he did it by showing you over and over the difference between what was sent to grow you and what was sent to keep you stuck. Now you walk with spiritual sobriety. You don't move because something looks impressive. You move because your spirit is at peace. You don't pursue validation, you pursue alignment. And you don't wait for everyone to agree before you obey. You move because God said it, and your life has proven his voice. You've shifted from searching for signs to stewarding them. That's the mark of maturity. You no longer need a fresh miracle to believe. Your memory is enough. The signs God gave you last month, last year, last season, they're still valid. They're still active, and they're still leading you. So don't let temporary pressure cancel permanent clarity. Don't let the enemy convince you that your obedience needs to feel easy. Obedience isn't always convenient, but it is always rewarded. You are about to see what happens when someone finally trusts the signs. When someone finally stops apologizing for outgrowing environments that no longer speak their language. When someone stops watering down what God made clear just to fit into spaces they've already been released from. You've crossed over now. This is the realm where movement is sacred, where every step is calculated, where every yes is protected, where silence is no longer empty. It's strategic, and in this realm the signs don't just guide your direction, they confirm your dominion. You are not just on the right path, you are carrying the authority to transform every place your obedience takes you. This is where it all starts to make sense, not because the circumstances have become easier, but because your spirit has become anchored. You've stopped measuring progress by what you see. You've started measuring it by what you discern. That's why the signs have felt heavier lately. They're not random moments anymore. They are evidence of movement in the unseen. Heaven has been speaking consistently, not to overwhelm you, but to remind you you're not lost, you're not behind. You are in sync with something much bigger than your timeline, your plans, or your preferences. You are in sync with divine orchestration. And now you can feel it. Things that used to require striving now arrive with ease. Conversations that used to drain you now expose their purpose. Situations that once confused you now confirm your growth. This is the shift. You've entered the phase where what's for you doesn't need to be forced. It flows. You've surrendered your need to understand everything in order to obey. That's where real authority begins. Because the ones God trusts the most are not the ones with the best explanations. They're the ones who obey with the least resistance. You've shown him that. You've obeyed without the applause. You've adjusted without the clarity. You've stayed faithful when you felt forgotten. And every time you could have quit, you chose to keep listening. That choice has positioned you. This isn't about reward. It's about responsibility. You are now carrying the weight of insight that many ignore. You're walking with a level of clarity that others dismiss. But you know what it cost you. You know what it took to get here. That's why you move with care. That's why your silence has grown. That's why your spirit no longer feels the need to explain what God is confirming. Because the signs were never meant to be shared with everyone. Some confirmations are sacred. Some are reserved for the chosen. And you've proven that you know how to carry what He reveals without polluting it through conversation. This is why doors are about to open without announcement. Why provision will meet you without pursuit. Why clarity will come without striving. Because God doesn't need to keep proving Himself to someone who already believes. You've seen enough. And now everything is about to align. Not because you finally figured it out, but because you finally surrendered what needed to be released. You're ready. Not because everything around you is perfect, but because everything within you is aligned. This is the moment the signs were pointing to. Now walk in it, fully, boldly, silently, if needed, but with complete certainty. There is a stillness settling over you now, not from exhaustion, but from assurance. The war in your mind is quieting because the truth has been established. You don't need more proof. You don't need another sign. What you needed was peace, and now you have it. The kind that doesn't waver with circumstances. The kind that doesn't fade when people misunderstand you. The kind that is born from knowing you've heard from God, and that is enough. He has been walking with you every step of the way. Even in the moments when it felt like heaven was silent, He was still guiding you. The signs were never just about direction. They were about intimacy, about communion, about developing a rhythm between your spirit and His voice. Now you no longer ask out of fear. You ask out of fellowship. You no longer question because of insecurity. You discern because of maturity. This is the mark of someone who has been refined in the fire of waiting, who has learned to let go of timelines and lean into trust, who understands that when God shows you something over and over again, it's not because He's unsure, it's because He's building unshakable faith in you. You are no longer chasing outcomes. You are walking in obedience. And that obedience is opening things for you that effort never could. It's shifting things in your favor that strategy never would, because favor responds to alignment, not performance. And you, chosen one, are aligned now. That's why you don't feel the same urgency to explain yourself. That's why the things that once stirred anxiety now carry peace, because you've stopped fighting for control and started flowing with the current of divine timing. God has been showing you the signs to train your surrender, not to get your approval, but to prepare your authority. What's coming next is not something you have to manufacture. It's something you're going to meet already prepared. And when you arrive, there will be no striving and only stewardship, no scrambling and only clarity. You'll walk into rooms already shaped for your voice. You'll encounter opportunities that match your level of refinement. You'll recognize answers to prayers, not because they look impressive, but because they resonate with what God has already revealed to you in secret. This is the power of being led by signs, not chasing them. And now that you've learned the difference, you'll never mistake distraction for destiny again. You are ready, not because of what's around you, but because of what's within you. You've heard, you've seen, you've surrendered. Now receive.